Okay, so together with Jael Reisner and Jakob and Nathan Tulve, we have designed this mixed reality experience called The Talking Trees of Tallinn. And the challenge of this experience was to really get all of the participating architects' 3D models and also physical fragments together to create like a collective VR experience. So the initial idea, like I work a lot with mixed reality, was to really take physical fragments of their design and let the visitor open the spaces that go with it by actually moving their own bodies through the space that we have set up. So on this slide, you see like a concept drawing of a person going through, opening up one after the other, and then you see the plan of how we've arranged them at the museum space. So this is an elevation of what some of you might have seen yesterday. So the whole idea is that we have the trees that are physically there, and then we have almost like handheld fragments of each of the projects where we're looking to create like a certain tactility within them. So they're all having like different, or working with different materials native to the designs of the architects themselves. So, for example, KTA, as you might have seen, the hut has this like foam surface, or like Barnaby's and Yale project is made from felt. So, as you can imagine, when you wear the headset, it's almost like being blind, and then every sensorial feedback you can get not only through your eyes but through your hands is very strong and increases the immersion when you're inside. So, what you can see on the slide is. I cannot go back. Okay, basically the moment you touch one of the pieces, this is just a screenshot of the Rhino model, you see how the digital models are overlaid to the experience. So this is Fujimoto's open cave. So what you can see, this one actually fits from the scale inside the building, but of course then there are designs like the one from March or the one from Sommer that are much bigger and that wouldn't actually fit inside the space if you would build them. So you can experience that by putting on the headset and then really being immersed in the whole, more holistic design. So maybe just like 2 slides for the making of it. Like it was made in Unity, and as I said before, like the challenge was to get all the digital models together, and and then combine them through code. So it's like an interactive experience that you trigger through the movement of your own body. Maybe like Nathan and Jakob, you've worked on the sound design. You can speak a bit about the sound.
Yeah.
We don't hear you.
Okay. So basically, since the push for the sound design of the VR experience came from composing the sound for the actual exhibition, the soundscape, then we were thinking that maybe we're gonna talk a little bit about the vision and the process of creating the soundscape for the exhibition, through which we kind of achieved kind of like got the ideas and the material for the sound design of the AR experience.
Yeah, one of the main ideas that we discussed with Yale was that if the future urban spaces would have beauty in mind, then those spaces would be more in tune with nature. So that's what we decided to focus on a lot. And also, with the rise of the emerging sustainable technologies, that like electric cars and scooters and delivery robots, we hope that the noisy mechanical sound of today's urban spaces will be subsumed by the natural sounds.
Yeah, so basically a little bit about the process. We started at first, after our initial discussions and meetings, to go with our handy recorder to just take these really long walks in the forest in the area of town where we live, Nõmme, which is kind of like a pretty good example of like a transitional area between a forest and the city. And and we started to compose a library of sounds that would be like kind of ambiguous and would stand a little bit between kind of like an artificial and a natural sound. And so as we realized that our like recordings wouldn't be enough, then we got in touch with an Estonian biologist, Veljo Runnel, who helped us out a lot with acquiring and finding the perfect sounds that we try to give this emotion on with. So basically, the backbone of the composition is a collage of natural and artificial sounds just recorded, and we kind of try to edit the sounds in a way that we would have the purest form of the sound itself. So yeah. And
Can we hear it? Can we hear it? Do you have it on the? Oh,
No, and,
I'm sorry. So you'll have to listen to it in the exhibition because it's quite awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very, very special. Just to add a few words about the idea, because we have the time. That's because we it's not 10 and 10, so we'll just converse. But the idea for the exhibition was that we'll have a light cycle and we'll have a soundscape along this light cycle, so they go together. And the soundscape is 30 minutes long as the light cycle. And I just love it. I think yesterday it was almost impossible to hear because it was overcrowded at the opening. But you should experience the exhibition with it because it really enhanced the atmosphere. It brought in the right atmosphere of the evening with all the city sound and nature. So, yeah.
And I think one thing to add, like working with VR, the sound has an extreme importance because obviously all the visual we create can never be as rich and as beautiful basically as reality. So it's always a very strong abstraction of what we know, especially if we speak about spaces. But with sound design, it's super interesting because, as they just described, they can actually go and record like a sound, and when you hear it back in VR, it's real. So like the uncanniness that's created within the experience, like we just have some images here because in the end we would really like to invite you all to come and see it for yourself. But I think this very special, like the emotional feedback you have when you go inside is created through this combination of the sound design, like the tactility of the objects, and then the visual more as like an abstraction of the scale of the spaces. This is Christina who did the pre-premiere.
I think it's also something unusual about this specific virtual reality experience, which is something unique to Paula, which is the mixed reality. So can you say a little bit even more about that, because it's something unique to you and the way you chose to develop the VR experience?
Yeah, I mean, I'm also going to speak a bit more afterwards with images, but I can just say for this one, I think the concept is pretty straightforward. So like the movement of your body and the filming of your hands creates the space. So it's really this combination of basically your real hand is being filmed, and the moment your real hand touches a real object, a virtual space is being born. Like it flourishes from that object. So that interaction is like a calibration between the physical and the virtual, and that's what's creating a bit this like magical moment of giving the viewer really the feeling of being in control of the environment. And that's something that's quite special, I think, especially with an architectural design, that it allows you to create within like an area of like, in the case of the museum, we have like, I think 5 times 5 meters, and we place 6 objects, and suddenly we can have like 6 massive virtual designs that can be experienced almost simultaneously. And yeah, basically just through the movement of the body of the person who's inside. So everybody also has a very individual experience, because everybody can choose. Everything is rendered in real time, so everybody can choose where to go, what to look at, where to stay, which order of the spaces to unlock. So yeah, basically there's no experience like another, and I think...
Yeah, and the thing is that what I found out quite fascinating is that, you know, we have it's 6 and not 8 projects, because the other 2 are virtual reality and augmented reality projects, so we did it only with the physical habitation projects. And it's quite fascinating, and I think also unique to Paula, that you have the object that you associate. It's very intuitive, the whole thing. You see the object, you know, this is Cadre object, this is project, this is March Studio project. You associate it directly. But then when you touch, think you are inside and you are surrounded by it. I found this experience awesome. I think that I visited one of Paula's project with the same principle, that you have the object and you touch. So it's like the tactility of the object, and then you go into kind of imaginative kind of world. And I experienced one of your projects. You did a 3-day workshop with 12 years old kids who she took them through the same process, and the experience was absolutely, everybody it was in Whitechapel Gallery, and after the kids left, everybody, all the adults wanted to experience that, and it was a result of only 3 days, but special, you know, thanks to your special way of kind of bringing them into this experience. So I think it's a very unique. It's not that what you'll experience in the museum, it's not every virtual reality experience. It's something very unique to something that Paula developed, and I'm quite fascinated about the relationship between the physical thing and the virtual. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe one last thing that's also quite interesting in architecture in general is like how the design process changes when you design for virtual reality environments. Because this was actually a particular thing I'd never done before, that I was working with other designers' content, and obviously like the models were made to be built or to be used like as like visual materials to create renderings, and architects put so much detail, which is amazing, of course, but into like you can really. It's such another way of designing for virtual reality, which is more like a game maybe, than to design for like a built environment. And it's, I think, a really interesting process also to go deeper into, to see, okay, what are these differences, and like where can we become more native within like the virtual reality design for these experiences, and where can this also feed back into like the architectural design process at points.
Right. Also, I think we were actually very lucky to get to be sponsored by HTC Vive, and I think it's also thanks to Paula, not just to the fact that it's thanks to 2 things. I think one was that they trusted Paula because they worked with her before in the Royal Academy in London, and there was a good experience for both, I guess. But it's interesting. They were very keen, I think, also because of the Italian Architecture Biennale kind of approaching, and they knew that lots of architects will experience that. And in a way, what we worked on is, you know, might be the tomorrow or already today in some offices way of sharing with clients the progress of your project, so they can, you know, much faster get into the feel of being in the building. So I think the HTC Vive, they were very kind to us and very generous, but it's also like they could see what might be developed there and what might be quite lucrative new business in a way that architects will discover any minute, and some of them already did. So it's quite interesting potential, because VR today, like so many people are interested. I think any of you just see the headset, you're already curious. But it is a great potential, and still not everybody's sure, where will it go? Will it be really interesting? But for architects, it is obvious it will become just a very common tool to work with. So.
And I think like also what you see when you go in the experience basically is one setup. So as Yael just said, like the potential of it, you can scale it up and down to any size. So you can also have like 5 glasses that take you to 5 different glass worlds. Or like you can have like small 1 to 20 models where you place a little person from one space to the other, and your client basically just moves by choosing which space to see, like in between your design not yet to be built. So there's so many like different, quite playful approaches where people can feel very active within the, getting to know the, designs that have not yet been built, which architects are so, basically that's all we learn while we're being educated. But then often we communicate with people who don't have the, who don't have the education to read plans or like understand images. So I think there's a lot of potential within like the abstraction of these virtual environments and how you use it as a tool to communicate. Yeah.
That's right. Okay, thank you. We will wrap that. Thank you, Paula and Jakob and Nathan. And you should all go there and listen to their soundscape. Thank you.